Every time I watch like a video I've just filmed, I am always like, I touched my hair so much. So we're gonna try to not do that this video. It's in a bun, so like it shouldn't be too hard, but you never know. What's up guys, it's Ella. Welcome to my channel, whether you are new here or not. Today we are going to be doing small town romance recommendations. So I have been so invested in small town romances recently. I will talk about the books that got me into this trope in a minute, but I have been reading pretty much nothing. If I'm reading a romance recently, it's a small town romance. I'm obsessed. So these are going to be some recommendations. Some I have physically, some I'm going to have to put up on the screen because I read on my iPad. You know the drill. Let's get into it. Editing Ella here to tell you that I'm watching this back and you can hear my sister hacking, like coughing, downstairs the entire time. Just here and there. I'm really sorry if that bothers you. It bothered me enough that I felt like I needed to make this video and tell you that if you're wondering what that sound was, that's what that is, and I'm aware of it and it bothers me. But I hope it doesn't bother you. And now that I've pointed it out, maybe that wasn't the best choice, but here we are. Okay, so like I said, we're going to start with the book or books. It's a series that got me into small town romance recommendations or small town romances, and that is the Edens series by Devney Perry. So far, I have only read Indigo Ridge and Juniper Hill, but I loved them so much. I got Garnet Flats in the mail yesterday, and I will be devouring this as soon as I finish the book that I am currently reading. The Edens series is about a family who lives in a small town, Quincy. They live in Quincy, Montana. They are like town royalty. They own so many different businesses in the town. Like, one of the sisters owns a hotel, one of the sisters owns a coffee shop, they own a ranch. Like, there's like a whole, they own lots of things. They own restaurants. They're a really big deal in the town of Quincy, Montana. And there's 6 siblings. Each sibling is going to get their own book. There's only 3 out right now. The 4th one comes out in January. So there's Indigo Ridge, which is the oldest Eden series. This is about Griffin Eden and Winslow Winnie Covington. Winslow is the new chief of police in Quincy, and her very first night in town, she is at a bar and she's looking for like a one-night stand kind of thing, hoping to find a tourist or someone like that, and she sees Griffin. She's like, oh, you know, he's really attractive. Do you live in town? And Griffin says no, because Griffin technically lives on a ranch outside of town, just outside town. And so he says no, and he thinks that she's a tourist, she thinks that he's a tourist, and therefore they have a one-night stand together. But imagine Winslow's surprise when in fact he is not like a tourist. Couldn't think of that word. He's not a tourist, he's an Eden, and I personally think an Eden is much more favorable, but at the time Winslow disagreed. So that's this book. There's also a mystery element to this book because, like I said, Winslow is the new chief of police for this town, and there have been some like happenings in the town specifically relating to young women who have died, and they think that it's like a suicide situation and they like jump off of Indigo Ridge, and everybody thinks like, oh, every so often girls commit suicide off of Indigo Ridge, which is where Griffin Eden lives. And Winslow's like, that's suspicious, nobody ever checked into that, and they said no. And so Winslow's like, okay, I'll do it. So she did, and there's like a mystery element to it, and I absolutely loved this book. Then I read Juniper Hill, which I think a lot of people prefer Juniper Hill to either of the other two. I actually preferred Indigo Ridge to Juniper Hill, but they were both 5 stars, but I just liked Indigo Ridge better. I think I did really enjoy the mystery aspect of that book. Anyway, this book is about the second oldest Eden, Knox. He falls in love with a single mom who like comes into town and works for Knox's sister, and the single mom's name is Memphis, and she's like, yeah, like I'll come work at this hotel for Knox's younger sister, except I don't have anywhere to live. And Knox's younger sister is desperate for the help, and she's like, I will find you a place to live. And the place that she finds is Knox's garage apartment on Juniper Hill. So that's that one. It's, like I said, single parent. There's also a little bit of like, not mystery, but like weird happenings in this book. So that's that one. And then, like I said, there's Garnet Flats, but I haven't read that yet, so I can't give a description. But if you were looking for small town romance recommendations, The Edens is where it's at. I cannot wait to read Garnet Flats, and then I have to wait until January 31st for Jasper Vale, and I am just not thrilled about waiting that long, but I'll live, I think. The next book, if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you've heard me talk about it. All Roads Lead Here by Miranda Zapata. This is one of my top 3 favorite romances of all time. I will talk about one of my other favorite romances of all time, my actual favorite romance of all time, in a minute, but this is one of my top 3 favorite romances of all time. Can I say that one more time? This book is about a girl named Aurora who is going through a breakup of her relationship of like 10 years. They'd been together for so long, and to recover from this breakup, she is going to go to the town that she lived in until she was 10. It's a Colorado town where hiking is really prevalent, and her mom went missing on a hiking trail when she was 10. She had to move out of that town, and she hasn't been back since. And so she's gonna go back and kind of connect with her roots, I guess. But she gets back and she rents this like Airbnb situation, and she gets to this garage apartment Airbnb situation, and she gets there and realizes that the actual owner of the house didn't list his garage apartment, but his son did. So his name's Tobias Rhodes, the like landlord, and he is not thrilled that Aurora is on his property, but he lets her stay. It's Grumpy Sunshine, age gap, single father, slow burn, small town romance, and it is one of my absolute favorites of all time. It's a Miranda Zapata, so it is a slow burn, but it's so incredibly worth it, and the tension between the two of them, like leading up into the burn part of the slow burn, it's phenomenal. I took my hair down. I know it's messy. Just don't look at it. The next book is another recent read, and that's Flawless by Elsie Silver. This book is also so good. It's not, I mean, it is a small town romance for most of it, but basically there's this guy, he is a professional bull rider, and he makes a very public statement that he doesn't like milk, and so many of his sponsorships are from like milk companies. That's a really big problem. Oddly enough, he was like, I don't like milk, and everybody flipped out, and he lost sponsorships, and it's like a whole thing. So this girl, his manager's daughter, gets told to like babysit him essentially and work on his PR and like his image and stuff like that. They end up falling head over heels madly in love, and it's phenomenal. There's like the hurt comfort trope that I really like. There's like, he's semi-famous with like a very niche group of people, but he is famous. Like in the bull riding industry, he's a really big deal. So there's that. And I just really enjoyed the dynamic in that book, and the second one is actually coming out in that series, is actually coming out October 14th. So that's before I'm filming that. Like, I'm filming this October 11th, but it will probably be out by the time this video gets out. So go check that out. That's called Heartless by Elsie Silver, and I am so excited to read that one as well. The next book is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I am a huge recommender of this book. I think that it is so incredible. I read it in July, but I so desperately wish that I had read it in October, because it is the perfect fall vibe book. I put it in my fall recommendations video. Anyway, Florence Day is a ghostwriter for a romance novelist, and one day she gets broken up with, and she doesn't really believe in love anymore, and so she really struggles to write romance, which is an issue when you ghostwrite for a romance writer, right? So she goes to her new publisher and is like, hey, I don't want to write romance anymore, and he's like, oh, that sucks, you still have books on your contract, you have to continue to write romance. She's all upset about this. She goes out with her friends to like drink away her sorrows and gets a call that her father passed away. So she has to go back to her hometown where a lot of mysterious things happened throughout her entire life. Like there's a reason that she never went back to her hometown. She was like bullied, and there was a whole like scenario that you find out about, but I'm not gonna tell you because it's a spoiler. And anyway, she goes back to her hometown for the first time in a long time for her father's funeral. Her father owns a funeral home, and during his funeral, on the steps of the funeral home, who is there but the ghost of the publisher that told her she has to continue to write romance. I know. That's this book. I will say, I always click forward 10 seconds if you are even a little bit worried about it being spoiled. But this book, like, the ending was a happily ever after. I remember picking up this book and like halfway through I'm like, this book is phenomenal. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. But I was like, this book is phenomenal, but there's no way this can end happy because this guy's dead. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Okay, moving on. The next book is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. You've probably seen this book everywhere, so I'm only going to talk about it very briefly. But this book is also about a man named Knox, because all grumpy small town men are named Knox. That's been my personal experience. Anyway, this guy named Knox and this girl named Naomi. Naomi's twin sister, her name is Tina. She causes a lot of problems everywhere she goes. They haven't spoken in some time, but Naomi is like set to get married, and she like gets a call on her wedding day. And it's Tina, and Tina said, hey, you need to come to this town because I need help. And Naomi didn't really want to get married anyway, so she was like, done coming, I'm leaving my wedding. Gets there and doesn't find her sister, but does find her sister's 12-year-old daughter and a lot of people who dislike her sister. So, Knox is at the forefront of the I Hate Tina movement, and they strike up like a romance because they're both like trying to find Tina, but also trying to deal with Waylay, the 12-year-old. It's a whole thing. I liked this book, not as much as a lot of people like it. I know it's a lot of people's favorite book ever. I liked it fine. I think I gave it 4 stars. So definitely recommend if you are looking for a small town romance. The next book is another one that I talk about. I'm a huge like recommender of this book, and that is The Highland Fling by Megan Quinn. I absolutely love this book. I don't think enough people absolutely love this book. This book is about an American named Bonnie and her best friend. They're both like very unhappy with their lives. They live together. They're both very unhappy with their lives, feel like they're in dead-end jobs and whatnot. So they decide to apply for an ad online in the internet online, where this couple owns a coffee shop in Scotland, and they're looking for people to take over their coffee shop while they go on a month-long vacation. Bonnie and her best friend / roommate, whose name I can't remember, Dakota, I think? That doesn't sound right. I really thought it was like Sharon. Dakota is what the book tells me. Anyway, okay. So Bonnie and Dakota move to Scotland to take over this coffee shop, and everybody in the town is very welcoming except for the son of the couple who's who is going on the vacation. Because the couple never told Rowan that they were going on vacation, and there's a lot to it, but he's grumpy, I think, for good reason. And he's just, like I said, super grumpy. It's small, idyllic Scotland town vibes. It's everything I ever want, and I absolutely love this book. It made me laugh, it made me cry. Like, this book made me laugh out loud. Within the first 100 pages, it made me laugh out loud harder than any book ever. It takes a lot for a book to make me like laugh out loud. I'll be like, oh, that's funny, but laugh out loud? No. This one? Yes. Okay, up next we have one that I think is actually like very comparable to The Highland Fling, but it happened one summer by Tessa Bailey. This is another super duper popular one that if you haven't read, what are you doing with yourself? What? This book is about Piper, who is an LA heiress, She lives in LA and is an heiress, and she gets into some trouble, and her stepdad, who is the provider of her money, says, I can't bail you out of trouble anymore. This is ridiculous. You're how old? Like, I can't do this anymore. You need to figure yourself out. So Piper goes to the town that she lived in before her father died when her and her sister were very, very young because he was a crab fisherman and he died like crab fishing. So she goes back to his hometown and the town that she was born in, and she, like, her and her sister go to try to fix up his old bar that he once owned. And there they find Brendan, who is one of my favorite book boyfriends ever. I absolutely love him. But he doesn't like Piper because she's an outsider and he knows everyone in this town. But he likes her eventually. He figures out how to like her. And it's their romance and it's so cute. And I feel like everybody's read this, but if you haven't, I don't know what you're doing with I don't know what you're doing with yourself, and I don't know what you're doing with your life. And the last book, guys, this is my favorite book. This is my favorite book of all time. Okay, and everybody's read it, but I never talk about it on my channel. So I'm gonna talk about it on my channel. But I know everybody's read it. So like, is it a recommendation or is this just an excuse for me to talk about Beach Read by Emily Henry? I don't know. But I'm gonna talk about Beach Read by Emily Henry. Is that okay with you? You can't answer me, so it better be. January Andrews thought that her parents had the perfect marriage until her dad dies. This book is about January Andrews who thought her parents had the perfect marriage until her dad dies and his mistress shows up at the funeral, offering her the keys to his house on a lake in Michigan. I forget what the lake's called. Bear Lake? Something like that. It's in or maybe it's on Lake Michigan. I don't remember. Anyway, she doesn't want to go, but she has to clean out his house and like get it ready to sell. She moves there and the guy who lives next door to her is her college rival. Isn't that so fun? It was so fun. His name's Augustus Everett. They were rivals in college because they were both writers. They wrote different types of literature, and so they both like judged the other one for the type of literature that they wrote, until now they are both famous authors and they are both in book slumps, so they decide to give the other person's type of literature a try. So she writes romance, he writes literary fiction, and they make a bet that she'll write literary fiction and he'll write romance, and she's going to take him on like dates to show him how to write romance, and he's going to show her his investigative process. So they like interview cult members and stuff like that because that's what he was writing about. And this book, just these characters are both so nuanced. It was Emily Henry's debut, and it just, I love her other two books, but I don't think any book that she ever writes ever again in the history of anything will beat Beach Read for me. And it's just so phenomenal. The first book that I ever stayed up all night to read, and it was amazing. And I'm really glad. I really need to talk about it more on this channel. I'm really glad that I got to today. But I need to come up with more excuses to talk about it on this channel, even though everybody's already read it, just because I feel like people don't know that I like it, and I need people to know that it's one of my primary personality traits. So that is all of my, not all of, but that is a lot of my small town romance recommendations. Like I said, I am really into small town romance recommendations right now, so I'm currently like always reading more small town romance recommendations. So if you are interested in a part 2 to this, I can absolutely do that. Just let me know in the comments. Anyway guys, those are my recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you when I see you. Bye guys.